Good evening, everyone. The August 11, 2022 meeting of the Rent Control Board is called to order. Would the Secretary please take the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Leslie.
Yes.
Commissioner Torosis.
Present.
Vice Chair Foster.
You're muted.
Here.
Chair Duran.
I am here as well. All right, welcome everybody. We are moving right along to the first item of business, which is approval of the minutes for both July 14, 2022 and July 28, 2022.
I move that we approve the minutes of both meetings.
I second it.
Okay, first and second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Commissioner Torosis.
Yes.
Commissioner Leslie.
Yes.
Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Duran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 6, special agenda items. Ms. Condon, are there any comments to be made in this section?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. I have a few comments to make this evening. First, registration fees were due in our office by August 1st. I'm happy to report that we've received more than 90% of the fees that are due. This year, almost 43% of the fee payments were done electronically by e-check or credit card, which is about an 11.5% increase over the previous year. So we're moving in the right direction there in terms of efficiency. This week, we mailed out rebills to those properties where the fees have not yet been paid, and owners must pay the fees in full before they may increase the rent. Owners who have any questions about their fees may contact us at 310-458-8751 or by email at rentcontrol@santamonica.gov. As you all know, this year's rent increase for controlled rental units is 6% of the maximum allowable rent, with a maximum increase in the MAR of $140. Tenants should receive written notice from their landlords at least 30 days before the implementation of the increase. As this is the largest increase since 1990, the city is developing an emergency rent relief program to assist severely rent-burdened tenants pay this year's increase. You'll hear a bit more about that outreach effort for that program from Mr. Costello later this evening, but I want to encourage tenants who are interested in being contacted once the program parameters are finalized to submit their contact information via the city's website at santamonica.gov. Once you get to the city's homepage, you'll see a tile there called Rent Increase Help, and you can click on that to provide your contact information. And that's all I have this evening.
Okay, very well. Thank you so much. I failed to mention earlier the phone number and ID and password information for this meeting tonight. So anyone who is listening and wishing to address the board this evening should have contacted the board secretary prior to the meeting. If you'd like to make a public comment, feel free to request to do so. I'll give you the number now. It is 408-740-7256. And the meeting ID is 248-564-691. And the passcode is 3694. If there's any issues with those numbers, perhaps we can post them briefly, Secretary Ho, so people can see them on the screen. And with that, I'll move to the public comment section, which is the next item on our agenda. This is a time set aside for members of the public to address the board on matters that concern the jurisdiction, that are in the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. We cannot take official action on the item, but you can speak with us if you wish. So I see that the numbers have been posted. I'll leave that up for a moment. And I know that we have one person who would like to speak in the public comment section. It is Phyllis Dudick. And perhaps while she's speaking, we'll leave those numbers up and then we'll take them down after she's done so others can call in if they would like. So Secretary Ho, if you could help Ms. Dudick get ready.
Yes, it actually appears that Ms. Dudick has not joined our speakers queue. Ms. Dudick, if you are listening or watching via teleconference, please use the number and the meeting ID on the screen now to call in.
Okay.
I love this sharing of the screen. This is a great, thank you, Secretary Ho. This is great.
Well, let's see here. I wonder if we can move on and then come back to public comment if anybody does request to speak. Is there anything I need to request of do we have to approve that, Ms. Condon or council?
So Chair Duran, what I would suggest is that you close public comment, but since Ms. Dudick had requested an opportunity to speak, if she does manage to join the meeting, then she should be allowed to speak. But otherwise, now is the time for anyone else.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. Then we'll do that. Thank you, Ms. Regan. So we'll close the public comment with the exception that if Ms. Dudick calls back in since she made the request to speak. Secretary Ho, if you can let us know if she does come on board. Then we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is item 10, jurisdictional items. And I may have item 10A1, which is case number D5264. The staff report on that appeal, please.
We can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, we can hear him.
There we go.
I can't. He was muted.
Oh,
now
okay. Yes. No. Yes.
My apologies. Good evening, commissioners. The appellants in this case are the landlord, Mr. Thomas Nitty, and the tenant, Robin Guess. Commissioners, 2 days ago, Mr. Nitty contacted the board and asked for a continuance of this matter because he stated that he had never received the staff reports that had been emailed to him on July 28th, 2022, and had not had time to submit written comments to the staff report. At his request, staff resent the staff report to him on August 8th. Staff contacted Ms. Guess, who declined Mr. Nitty's request to voluntarily agree to a continuance. The email to which the staff report was sent on July 28th to Mr. Nitty is the same as the one on August 8th, which Mr. Nitty says that he received, and neither email was returned as undeliverable. On that basis, staff determined there was no good cause for a continuance. To avoid prejudice to the tenant who had declined to voluntarily agree to a continuance, and because there was no good cause for the continuance, staff informed Mr. Nitty that the matter will be heard as scheduled tonight. There is no prejudice to the landlord since he can respond to the staff report tonight, and in fact, he has submitted a written response which has been forwarded to you. In that response, Mr. Nitty states that when he received the original email on July 28th, he did not open it because it was from Jason Douglas, the board's legal secretary, and he did not know whom he was. But the subject line in both the July 28th email and the August 8th one states, quote, notice of consideration on appeal and staff report for decreased petition D-5264. Both parties received the same email with the same staff report well in advance of tonight's hearing, and both parties have submitted written responses to the staff report. I'll now address some of the main points raised in the appeals, all of which are detailed in the staff report. Mr. Nitty argues that 10 days is too short of a period for him to submit an appeal of the decision. Mr. Nitty did not provide any authority for how this process deprives him of due process, and staff is unaware of any. Appeals deadline of equal or similar length are not uncommon, particularly in administrative decisions. Mr. Niddy objects to the hearing officer's denial of his request to view the entirety of the hearing investigator's video of the tenant's unit, not just the parts that were submitted into the record. But he had the opportunity on his own to investigate the conditions alleged by Ms. Guess and to submit evidence to rebut the investigator's report. He also had the opportunity to cross-examine the investigator as to what, if anything, she had left out of her report that would be relevant to this case. And the record does not show that the hearing investigator excluded relevant evidence. Mr. Niddy objects to the denial of his motion to dismiss the petition for lack of specificity, claiming that it's a violation of his due process. Due process requires two basic things. Notice that a person's interest will be implicated in an official proceeding and the opportunity to be heard at that proceeding. And it is well settled that due process under both the federal and state constitutions requires only, quote, reasonable notice, a standard that is less than exacting, and, quote, flexible, especially where administrative procedures are concerned. The record shows that Ms. Guess provided sufficient notice and that Mr. Niddy was well aware of the claimed deficiencies in her unit prior to the hearing in this matter. In fact, there was a settlement agreement months prior to the hearings in which the parties agreed to the conditions that required repair. Mr. Niddy also argues that the decision is arbitrary because it failed to include any analysis as to whether the decreases deprived him of a fair return. The charter specifies the reasons for which the board may decrease the rent when a landlord fails to make repairs. Courts have held that because a landlord may increase his rate of return by failing to make repairs, the board may decrease rents if the evidence shows that the factors listed in the charter have been satisfied. Since the evidence shows that Mr. Niddy has substantially failed to correct maintenance conditions, the decreases granted by the hearing officer are in accordance with the charter and case law. The tenant, Ms. Guess, argues that the hearing officer erred in excluding a portion of her decreases under Regulation 4203, which allows the board to grant decreases back to the first date that the rent is due after the tenant filed her petition, but excludes decreases for any period that the hearing process is delayed or continued for good cause. The parties in this matter entered into a settlement agreement in which they agreed that the decreases will be excluded for, quote, any repair period. Repairs were being performed until October 2nd, 2021, so the repair period was deemed to be July 1st, 2021 through October 2nd, 2021. The hearing officer therefore reasonably excluded decreases for this period in accordance with that regulation and the terms of the settlement agreement. Ms. Guess also believes that she's entitled to decreases for areas that were painted by Mr. Niddy in October 21 because the work was substandard, and for doorknobs that the hearing officer found to have been repaired, but which she states are still not repaired. The record shows that the hearing officer relied on credible evidence to support her decision. And based on the standard of review in an appeal, those are grounds to affirm the hearing officer's findings. Finally, Ms. Guess argues that she's entitled to a rent decrease for a reduction in management services because the evidence showed that the Niddys had failed to make all the repairs she had complained of in her petition, that she can only make requests through a complaint drop box, and the reasons for which she has denied his workers entry had been reasonable. But the hearing officer has already granted a decrease for those specific conditions that Ms. Guess was able to prove as still unrepaired. And Ms. Guess concedes in her own appeal that the city attorney's office informed her that she could not deny access for repairs merely because she had not been provided information on the worker's vaccination status. And finally, the record shows that Ms. Guess already requests repairs through text to Mrs. Niddy, and that Mr. Niddy has added that she can now make complaints to the handyman. Ms. Guess doubts this claim, but for that reason, the hearing officer's decision recommends waiver of the 6-month waiting period for reduction of management services in case the new procedure with the handyman fails to prove effective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have two speakers. I want to ask before that, though, if any commissioners have any questions regarding the staff report. I don't. Oh, okay. Vice Chair Foster, go ahead.
Thank you. Mordecai, just to refresh the public's memory, when we are conducting hearings remotely or using email correspondence, do you feel that staff has been consistent in their use of emails and that the parties have both responded to emails with these subject headlines and knew to be looking for them, et cetera, et cetera? Do you feel confident in that?
The email that was used in this case is the same email that was used throughout this procedure. The same email was sent to both parties, and in fact, I can share the email to the July 28th email. Forgive me, I will try to see how I can. Apologies about if I could have Mr. Ho's assistance in guiding me how I can share screen.
You should be able to see share screen option under the content sharing.
Yes, I do see it now. Thank you so much. All right, commissioners, I will now go to that. Here's the email that was sent to both Ms. Guess and Mr. Nitty. And the subject matter says, notice on consideration of appeal and staff reports for decrease petition. And here we have the context, the content of the email and there were attachments.
I'm not seeing it. Is anybody?
I don't see it yet, Mr. Mordecai. But I really like this screen sharing situation that's going on in this meeting.
Let me try again. You can see me now again, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just do again, share screen. And then I'm going to go to the document. Does it appear now, commissioners?
No.
Could I offer some assistance? Mr. Mortis, Vice Chair Foster, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you were doubting that the email was sent. It sounds like your question was whether or not the email notice was consistent throughout this process. And I think Mr. Mortis, has he answered your question? You're muted. You're muted, Vice Chair Foster. You're muted, Vice Chair Foster. We can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm trying. Something going on with Blue Jeans tonight. I don't know what. No, my question is answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands raised, we do have two requests to speak. The first will be appellant Robin Guess, who's the tenant. If Secretary Ho, you can assist with her getting ready to speak.
Yes, Ms. Guess, you will have 5 minutes to address the board. You have been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Ho, can you tell me whether or not they got my written response to staff recommendations? I think it said so in your email, but I wasn't sure. Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Guess. Any response that you had sent to the legal staff would have been sent to the board. However,
okay.
Yes, but that would have been sent by our legal team, who is not present at this meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Guess, the responses were sent and forwarded to the board, and in fact, the board commissioners just indicated that they have received your response.
Yeah, they're in the packet.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. So I will try to not repeat too much and move this forward. And I'd first like to start by thanking you for allowing me to address you regarding my decrease appeal. First and foremost, I really would like to implore this board to further reduce my rent. And the reasons for that are a lack of management services, reduced management services, failure to adequately paint, failure to make numerous repairs and address broken, deteriorating windows, and chipping paint throughout my apartment. I am also imploring this board to re-examine and then reverse the conclusion that your staff made that the Nitties are responsive to my request for repairs and management services. Nothing, absolutely nothing could be further from the truth. I have lived with these substandard, slum-like conditions since October 2020 with absolutely no relief for nearly 2 years. Staff referenced that during July 2021 to October 2021, Tom Nitty was actively engaged in repairs. The facts don't support that. He came into my place once on October 2nd and made very shoddy rushed repairs that a week later he painted. It was peeling, and I had a certified contractor evaluate that work, and that evaluation is part of the evidence that I submitted during the hearing, and it's evidence that you have access to. So there were no repairs in July, August, September. One day in October, I do not believe he should get 4 months credit for doing 1 day's work of shoddy work. And after I had been appealing to him for 13 months to make these repairs, Mr. Nitty has used a number of maneuvers to delay this process and prevent me from getting relief. As recently as this week, he attempted to delay the hearing of this appeal before this very board by claiming he never received notice. And that's simply untrue because I got the same notice he got. So I know he received it. And this is a pattern. Mr. Nitty and his co-manager, wife Phyllis, have consistently lied, deceived, and misrepresented critical facts to the Rent Control Board staff. This is just a partial list of some of these egregious falsifications. Tom Nitty lied to the rent control mediator and lied about the settlement agreement when he said he wrote in writing that he had made all the repairs to my apartment that were listed in my original petition. That has never happened and exists today. My apartment is a disgrace. Number 2, Tom Nitty lied to the hearing officers when he insisted he hadn't seen any requests for repairs to my apartment prior to the board investigator's report in August 2021. I urge you just to peruse the documents dating back to October 2020, almost 2 years of documentation from me, including my petition, certified letters, and the mediation agreement and settlement agreement. You will find that Tom Nitty has been well aware and informed of the litany of problems in my apartment. Tom Nitty, this is my third point, Tom Nitty perjured himself during the hearing when he claimed he didn't know anything about the art that was broken in my apartment in July 2021, when his wife, Caesar the handyman, and 2 workers whose name he claims to not know were repairing a window.
I'm sorry, Ms. Guest, that's your time.
Can she just finish her thought by chance, Mr. Duran?
That's fine. Sure. If you could bring her up, Secretary Ho, to finish her thought.
Yes, Ms. Guest, you have been unmuted. Please continue.
Oh, okay. Thank you. What he did not know is that the security video was on in my apartment, and it shows his wife, Phyllis Nitty, breaking the art along with Caesar and these 2 unnamed workers, and then she instructed them to push it under my couch. These all speak to a lack of management services, as well as the fact that he claimed he used a licensed contractor, and the hearing officer left the hearing open 2 days so he could provide the number of the contractor. He failed to do so because the contractor and workers he used are unlicensed. They're unskilled, and that is why my apartment looks the way it does.
Okay, Ms. Guest, thank you very much. We will now hear from Thomas Nitty. Mr. Ho, if you would like to assist with getting him ready to speak.
Yes, Mr. Nitti, you will have 5 minutes to address the board. You have been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, thank you. I could, given we had a 4-day hearing, I could go through my whole 5 minutes dealing with what Ms. Guest said, but it was all retorted, and she had plenty of time to make that factual argument. But the hearing officer listened to what I had to say and made her decision, which is contrary to Ms. Guest in many respects. So since that's a factual matter, that's the province of the hearing officer, not the board at this point. A couple of points I'd like to raise. 10 days to file an appeal of a notice of decision of the hearing officer is really too short. The hearings took 4 days. Writing the decision took almost 7 months. The staff constantly argues that other boards and other courts allow a short time like 10 days. But I've checked, and almost all of them that do simply require a piece of paper that says, I appeal. And then you do the briefing later. The rent board here requires, for an appeal, you basically have to write your whole brief in 10 days to be able to raise those issues. It's not as simple as just making an election for an appeal. And that procedure prejudices me. The notice of tonight's hearing, when I called Monday, I had first found out about tonight's hearing by looking at the agenda. When I called Monday and said I did not see the staff report, did not receive it, Jason Douglas had one sent to me right away. I looked back. He said it was sent earlier. And I did look back, and I did find it was sent earlier. However, Jason Douglas, in the header or his name, has no indication what he does or who he works for. It doesn't say rent board. It doesn't say the guest hearing or anything. It just says it's just an email from him. I've never heard his name before. The other rent board people I've communicated with, you have right after their name, rent board, and so on. So as I'm looking through the headers, because I'm getting a couple hundred emails a day, I didn't see anything referring to this hearing. That's why I called on Monday night and asked where it was. Mr. Douglas should have an official indicator after his name. The videotape. The hearing officer did not admit the videotape. The hearing officer says he should let the hearing investigator pick what she thought was relevant. I believe what's relevant should be decided by the hearing officer, and she should see the whole tape. I also want to see that tape because I may find things relevant to me. Ms. Guest's petition did not follow rent board instructions. The instructions on the form, the instructions for the petition, say the petitioner has to list all the details. She simply checked a bunch of boxes and did not indicate under the box where the problem was, what windows, what walls, and I did not get the detail to protect my clients 30 days to fix anything they could find. She was not cooperative in letting me in to point it out. She finally, some months later, let me in and walked me around for 8 minutes and said, well, here's the problems. Well, we know the tape with the investigator took 1 hour and 45 minutes. So she obviously showed the investigator much more than she showed me. And that's backed up by the written request of the hearing officer to the investigator, asking the investigator to please get all the details of what Ms. Guest's problems were, because the petition she filed did not indicate enough information for the hearing officer to make a decision, and that's her written request to the investigator. I never got that opportunity to see that kind of detail. And that's fine. That's my presentation.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nitty, that's your time.
Sounded like he was. Thank you, Mr. Nitty. I appreciate your comments. Are there any other speakers that have requested to speak on this item, Secretary Ho?
No, there are no other speakers.
Okay. Then I'd like to open it up for discussion among the commissioners. Does anybody want to speak on this or to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay. Vice Chair Foster?
So I think that even though it's complex, I think that the staff report is very straightforward. And, you know, many of us have been down this road many, many times before with appeals and many, many times with a double appeal where both parties are cross appealing. The staff report is very, very clear in its explanations of reasons for denial or reasons for upholding. And I can't, an error, reasonable person could disagree, you know, that these are reasonable conclusions. I am glad that we are waiving the 6-month period because I don't see a whole lot of great good faith here on these repairs in some cases. And I'm glad she has the ability to waive the 6-month period. But other than that, I'm satisfied with the staff report.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Terosis?
Yeah, I'm happy to go. I would agree. This was not a clearly erroneous finding, and I think there's a pretty significant record here. I don't find any of these reasons presented, unfortunately, by Mr. Nitty compelling. And I do think that the record reasonably supports the hearing officer's decision. So I'm prepared to make a motion unless either you or Ms. Leslie would like to convince me otherwise.
You can make your motion if you like.
Okay.
Like Commissioner
Just,
Leslie froze.
yeah, I just want to make sure that Commissioner Leslie doesn't want to say anything. Okay. So I move that because the record reasonably supports the hearing officer's decision, that we affirm the hearing officer's decision and findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
Okay. First and second, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Leslie.
Yes.
Commissioner Terosis.
Yes.
Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Duran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to, let me see, it looks like 10B1, case number 2022-29629C.
That's continued, Steve. That was updated. That one's been continued. Yeah, isn't that right?
You.
Yes, that's correct. Chairperson Duran, I see that Ms. Dudek has joined us. So perhaps you want to hear from Ms. Dudek.
Yes, okay, so just to be clear, item 10B1 has been continued, so I'll take that off. And then we'll go to the public comment section for Ms. Dudek. When you're ready, Ms. Dudek, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, Ms. Dudek, you have been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. I just simply would like to thank members of the Rent Control Board, Rent Control Administration, Santa Monica Renters' Rights, and others for your tireless efforts to address our recent renter emergency and for bringing our community together in support. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we are all very appreciative.
Thank you, Ms. Dudek. That's very nice to hear. Appreciate your comments.
Can I know we're not here to respond, but I also want to thank our staff who worked really hard And I will give a shameless plug since we're the political people and we can say this. Fight is not over. We are placing a ballot initiative on the November ballot to cap our rent increases, 2 ballot initiatives really. So I would just urge our public to stay vigilant and make sure that we vote in favor of those so that we can truly seal the deal here.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to, looks like item number 12, administrative items. Recommendation to declare a vacancy on the Rent Control Board and discuss procedures for appointment of a commissioner. I will declare that we do have a vacancy. Commissioner Sultan is no longer with us. So need there be a discussion further than that? Either Ms. Condon or Ms. Regan? Or maybe we should have a discussion. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for declaring the vacancy. And this is an opportunity for the board to discuss how you would like to pursue the recruitment for Commissioner Sultan's replacement. As you know, we've been through this process very recently, and we are recommending a repeat of that process, which will include publicizing the vacancy in the local newspaper, the Daily Press, as well as outreach from our website and through the city's social channels. We would like to ask people to submit their applications by noon on September 1st, which will give us the opportunity to provide those applications to the board a week before the meeting. And certainly if the commissioners are interested in speaking with the applicants before the meeting, that is perfectly fine. And but then we would invite any applicants to make a presentation at your September 8th meeting with the intention of having somebody appointed that evening who will serve through the November meeting and the November election when the position will be open through the election process.
Sounds clear to me, especially since we've just been through it.
Executive Director Condon, sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So these questions are the same questions that we had last time, correct?
Yes, they are.
With the edits that I think I had potentially asked for last time, correct?
Right. We incorporated those before that was publicized for the last vacancy.
Okay. And then I would just say that anyone who is planning to apply for the vacancy, I would expect that they've also planned to pull papers for the election in November, because this is a very short-term appointment. And I would want the person to plan to serve another term in November. That's just an editorial comment. Looks like. Yeah.
Commissioner Leslie, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. If someone was to pull papers today or tomorrow, it closes tomorrow. That's a real quick turnaround. They would have to really hit it before 5 o'clock or whatever time they picked up the papers.
That's correct, but I would hope that people are serious about this. We announced our vacancy last month, and we're serious about making sure that we're implementing our rent control charter, and I hope that anyone who applies for this is equally serious.
I do have a question, Ms. Condon. For the people that applied last time, do they have to, and you may have said this, I'm sorry I missed it, do they have to reapply for this one, or is it a rolling and their application is continued, they can appear next month?
Yes, they would need to reapply. I did contact each of them after the last appointment to let them know that there would be another vacancy and to invite them to apply for this new vacancy, but they will have to submit another application if they are interested in being appointed.
All right, very good. There's nothing else. I think it's all pretty clear. I just don't know if we need to make any kind of roll call vote or anything regarding this item. I don't think
No,
we do.
that's not necessary. If you're fine with the process as proposed, then we will start that process with a advertisement in the Daily Press next Monday.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see here. We have item number 15. And I'm sorry, I'll need a little help here from Secretary Ho or Ms. Condon. Late emails received providing public comments.
Excuse me, Chair Duran, we did add an item. Mr. Costello is going to do a short presentation on the outreach effort with respect to the rent relief program. So that was part of your late agenda on Tuesday. So
Okay.
Mr. Costello will make that presentation.
Okay, forgive me. I'm looking at the older agenda. Okay, when Mr. Costello is ready, then.
All right. Thank you and good evening, commissioners. So this item is about the outreach program to inform tenants of the emergency rental assistance program that Ms. Condon mentioned earlier. The need for this program, as you're acutely aware, is that inflation has led to a general adjustment of 6% this year, the highest it's been since 1990. And there is a lot of concern that an increase of this magnitude only worsens housing security for many tenants, especially households that are severely rent burdened, meaning paying half or more of their income in rent, and those that are extremely low and very low income. So to mitigate the impact of this year's GA, as Commissioner Trost has mentioned, you've managed to put on the ballot a measure that would reduce the general adjustment from 6% to an average of no more than 3% for the year. But even if that measure passes, it would not reduce rents until February of next year. Meanwhile, tenants have already been notified to pay higher rent beginning September 1st. So the city has responded with this emergency rental assistance program, just named today, I think, or yesterday, the Rent Control Adjustment Relief Program. And this program would use $750,000 to pay the full amount of the increase in rent for qualifying applicants for the months of September through January of next year. Because this is happening so quickly, time is of the essence, and we are working closely with the Community Services Department, the City Manager's Office, and others to work out the program particulars, to develop a simple application form, and all the communication pieces to get the word out and to get people applying and start distributing assistance as expeditiously as possible. So this particular item is really about getting the word out. And as you see in your staff report, we are scheduling communication across several channels and in multiple languages. So we're going to be doing weekly blasts on city social channels. Will be included in Samo News. We'll have email blasts out to our list and to other city lists. Press releases introducing the program. It will be included in the next Seascape newspaper. We're doing social advertising, and we're also producing a postcard and other flyers that can be distributed at various points in the city. The postcard is very important because we really want to reach all tenants directly. We do believe that we can exclude from our general tenant mailing list those tenants who moved in after September 1st of 2021 because they do not qualify for an increase this year. And there were about 3,600 new tenancies last year, so that should reduce our overall mailing. But the program is very similar to what we did for the California COVID relief program, and that was arguably very successful. So we're also going to be, working with our community partners, and we plan to have in-person clinics for people who, for some reason, can't apply online or having trouble, and we're planning to be able to provide that assistance in multiple languages also. But just as a brief timeline for you, the postcard and the flyer are in development, and we expect to send them to the printer next week, and then get them delivered hopefully the week after that. It might be a little bit later, but then applications would open August 29th and then close September 15th. So it's a pretty short window. We did want to take it somewhat into September because some tenants have not yet been noticed for their rent increase, so they would not have a notice of increase form that they'll need as part of their application. So we thought by taking it into September, we can open it up to more tenants. And then the goal would be to start distributing checks by the end of September. Anyone who's interested in this program can sign up on our website. You can go to santamonica.gov, and there's a link right there on the homepage, for you to say that you're interested, and you'll be contacted as soon as the program is ready. And Commissioner Foster, I think you had a question or?
Burning questions, so many that if I don't start asking them, I'm going to forget them all. Okay. So can you explain the reason for such a brief, short window of 3 weeks? And if you don't get your application in 3 weeks, you're out of luck. Why is it so short?
Well, I think because the goal was to start distributing checks as soon as possible, and we want to look at who qualifies as quickly as possible. It's kind of on a first come, first served basis. Obviously, the applicants would need to meet the requirements for assistance, which is, they said, they have to be extremely rent burdened, spending more than 50% of their income on rent, and also be extremely low income or very low income households. I think that application, I think that I can certainly present to the team that you think a longer application process, would be better. We certainly don't want to hold up the distribution of any checks, though. So let me
ask you a clarifying question. So I understand what you're saying, and I understand that they think they have a finite pot of money. So they need to establish quickly 4 months worth of, or September, October, November, December, January, 5 months. They need to figure out if the pot of money is enough. And so they need to know quickly who's going to need it. I understand that rolling enrollment is a challenge, but I strongly feel that we shouldn't close it to applicants. We can always tell them that the fund is perhaps dried up, or that we can look for funds for them elsewhere, but I'm strongly opposed to closing it. I do feel that it should be left open.
All right, I will pass that along.
Any other questions?
Did you have other questions, too?
No, I'll let it go at that.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So we've estimated the cost of this outreach effort to be about $45,000. And the city manager's office has already confirmed their contribution of a third of that. We're expecting that the Community Services Department will also contribute a third. And I'm here tonight to ask the board to consider authorizing up to $15,000 from the 22-23 budget to help fund this outreach effort. Yes.
Sorry, so $15,000 just for outreach, but not for direct subsidies?
That's correct.
Have we been asked for subsidies?
No.
So the city feels confident that they have a sufficient amount?
Well, these are the funds that are currently available, and the plan is to distribute them until they're exhausted, and then I think we'd have to look at it. Is it possible to do, any further assistance?
And the $15,000 is going to be spent on what exactly?
A large part of it is the cost of producing the postcards. So there'll be 4,000 postcards printed double, and the postage cost itself. When we did the Housing is Key program, the budget for that was $65,000. It did also include a second mailing to rent-controlled units. I think it may have been limited just to the long-term units.
And we feel confident. Oh, sorry, just really quickly, we feel confident that postcards are the most effective way to reach people, Mr. Costello?
Well, that in combination with many other efforts.
Okay.
But because this model seemed to have been effective for the Housing is Key, we thought it, is a good plan. I am saying, I'm requesting up to $15,000. I think that we've been putting this program together so quickly. I think there hasn't been a time to get, actual, hard estimates, but that's our soft estimate of what the cost would be.
And is your supposition that folks that need to prove that level of burden or that level of income proof, are you supposing that they've done that before and are prepared to do that in short order? Because again, that's a very tight window for gathering utility bills, gathering, proof and evidence of all of these things. Are you supposing that these folks are already doing that?
I don't really have any supposition about whether or not people are preparing that information, but I have seen a draft of the application form itself, and it is quite streamlined. I think we're only asking for, and I can't guarantee this because it's not final, but asking only for 1 month of income and 1 month of rent so that we can get a short picture, a quick picture. Also, tenants who already qualify for a low-income senior or low-income disabled fee waiver from the registration fee, the rent control registration fee, would not have to provide income information.
Okay, good. That does sound streamlined. Well, I move that we authorize up to $15,000 in initial spending on the outreach effort.
Second.
And there's been a first and a second. Is there a roll call vote that's required, Ms. Condon, on this?
Yes, please.
Okay, very good. Then may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Commissioner Leslie.
Yes.
Commissioner Roses.
Yes.
Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Duran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Costello, for the report. And
Thank
sorry,
you.
I didn't see the agenda with your item on it. Moving on, I did have item 15. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
I did have item 15, which is some late emails. And my question to my fellow commissioners is are there any communications or any discussion you want to have about them?
No.
No. Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to adjournment. Our next meeting is September 8th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We don't know whether it'll be teleconference or in the council chambers, but we will let everyone know. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Been a first.
Second.
And a second. We have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, Commissioner Roses.
Yes.
Commissioner Leslie,
Yes.
Vice Chair Foster,
Yes.
Chair Duran.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.